So I want you to do something for me real quick. Look around wherever you are right now. Maybe you're in your bedroom. Maybe you're on a bus. Maybe you're eating. Wherever you are, it's probably pretty safe, right? No one's trying to kill you. The ground isn't on fire. You can breathe. Good. That's good. Because the places we're about to talk about, none of that applies. These aren't war zones. They're not crime hotspots. They're not places where someone made a bad decision and things went wrong. These are places where the planet itself, the actual Earth we all share, decided at some point that humans are not welcome. And in some of them, the Earth has been enforcing that rule for millions of years. We're counting down 10 of the most dangerous places on this planet. And I'm not talking dangerous if you do something stupid. I'm talking dangerous if you just show up. Just breathing the air. Just standing there. And before we get into it, number 1 on this list? It was sealed from the rest of the world for 5.5 million years. When scientists finally got inside, what they found completely broke our understanding of how life on Earth works. So stay till the end for that one. Drop a comment right now telling us where you're watching from. Last time someone did one of these, they got viewers from over 40 countries. Let's see if we can beat that. Alright, let's get into it. Number 10, Snake Island, Brazil. We're starting with something the Brazilian government decided was so dangerous, they made it illegal to go there. 21 miles off the coast of Sao Paulo, there's an island. It looks normal enough from the water, trees, greenery, rocks along the shore. You'd think it was a nice little getaway spot. It is not a nice little getaway spot. The Brazilian Navy actively patrols the waters around this island. There are no residents, no visitors, no tourism, no exceptions. The only people allowed on it are scientists, and even they need a special government permit just to step foot there. And even with the permit, every single team member is required to carry anti-venom. Every trip must include a medical professional. They still move through the forest slowly, checking every branch, every rock, every single step before putting their foot down. Why? Because of snakes. Specifically, the golden lancehead viper. And specifically, the density of them. Researchers estimate approximately 1 snake for every square meter of forest on this island. 1 snake per square meter. Walk into those trees and they are absolutely everywhere, coiled on branches above your head, hidden in the leaf litter below your feet, draped over rocks, hanging from the undergrowth. There is no path through that forest where you are not within striking distance of at least one of them. Here's how this happened. About 11,000 years ago, rising sea levels cut this island off from the mainland. A small snake population got trapped there with no ground-based prey, no rats, no mice, nothing on the forest floor large enough to eat. So they adapted. They evolved to hunt birds. And to hunt birds, you need venom that works fast, because a bird that gets bitten and manages to fly away is a meal you're never getting back. So over thousands of generations, the golden lancehead developed venom estimated to be 3 to 5 times more potent than any of its mainland relatives. No one knows exactly what that venom would do to a human because almost no one has ever been bitten by one. But based on what we know about similar compounds and related species, researchers believe it would almost certainly be fatal before treatment could be administered. The last person who lived on the island was a lighthouse keeper. He was found dead alongside his wife and 3 children. The cause was never officially confirmed. The snakes were here first. They adapted. And the venom they developed wasn't for defense. It was designed to kill on contact. Number 9, Lake Natron, Tanzania. From a plane, this lake looks like someone spilled red paint over a patch of northern Tanzania. Bright red in some areas, deep orange in others, with white salt flats ringing the edges like a scar. It looks like a wound that never healed. And in a sense that's not far off. Lake Natron sits at the base of an active volcano called El Doño Lingai in the Rift Valley. The water temperature can reach 140 degrees Fahrenheit. The pH, the measure of how alkaline or acidic something is, sits higher than ammonia. Higher than bleach. We're talking about water so chemically extreme that if you were to fall in, the alkalinity would start breaking down your body tissue almost immediately. But here's the part that sounds fake and is not fake. Animals that make contact with Lake Natron for too long don't just die. They calcify. The sodium carbonate and sodium bicarbonate in the water acts as a natural preservative, hardening the bodies of anything that enters. Birds that crash into the surface, bats that lose their bearings at night, small mammals that wander too close to the edge. They turn into what look like stone statues. Perfectly preserved. Frozen in whatever position they died in. A photographer named Nick Brandt documented this phenomenon a few years back. He found these calcified animals, birds, bats, and posed them as if they were still alive. Wings spread. perched on branches, standing upright. The photos went viral because they look completely computer-generated. They're not. Every single one of those animals is real. And yet, and this is where nature does something completely absurd, millions of lesser flamingos come to Lake Natron every single year to breed. They nest on the salt flats in the middle of that lake, in conditions that would be lethal to virtually any other species on the planet. Scientists believe they choose Lake Natron specifically because it's so hostile. No predator is willing to cross that water to reach them. An entire species built its survival strategy around the fact that the place where it raises its young is too dangerous for anything else to enter. The flamingos found the most toxic lake on the continent and turned it into a nursery. That's either brilliant or deeply unsettling. Possibly both. Number 8, Oymyakon, Russia. Minus 88.6 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the lowest temperature ever recorded in a place where people permanently live. Not a research station. Not a temporary outpost. A village. With about 500 people in it. In the Sakha Republic of Eastern Siberia. People live there. On purpose. Year-round. The place is called Oymyakon, and it operates by a completely different set of rules than anywhere else on Earth. At that temperature, steel becomes brittle. Tires crack. Batteries fail within minutes of being exposed to the air. Exposed skin can develop frostbite in under 5 minutes. When you breathe out, the moisture in your breath crystallizes instantly. It freezes before it even leaves your mouth, and the tiny ice crystals fall to the ground making a soft crackling sound. The locals call it the whisper of the stars. Schools in Oymyakon only close when the temperature drops below minus 61 degrees Fahrenheit. Let that sink in. Minus 61. That's not a typo. That's the threshold below which even Oymyakon says, okay, maybe stay inside today. Cars are never turned off. Not in winter. Not ever. If you shut the engine off, the fuel lines freeze, the battery dies, and you might never get it started again. So residents leave their vehicles running 24 hours a day during the deep winter months. Just idling. Indefinitely. The ground is permanent permafrost. If someone dies in winter, and this is one of those things you don't think about until you hear it, burying them requires lighting a bonfire over the grave site for several days first, just to thaw the soil enough to dig a hole. Indoor plumbing is impossible in most homes. Pipes freeze and burst. So outhouses. In minus 70-degree weather. That is everyday life. And yet, people have lived here for centuries. The Yakut people. Horse breeders, reindeer herders, families who have never known anything different. They survive because of traditions built entirely around one rule: do not make a mistake. One wrong decision in Oymyakon is not an inconvenience. One door left open too long, one moment of carelessness, one piece of gear forgotten, and the cold doesn't give you a warning. It doesn't give you a second chance. Just takes you. Number 7. The Sundarbans, India and Bangladesh. Let's talk about a place where a wild animal has learned, specifically, to hunt humans. At the edge of the Bay of Bengal, where the Ganges Delta meets the ocean, there's a mangrove forest so large it stretches across 2 countries. 10,000 square kilometers of tangled roots, tidal waterways and mud. It's the largest mangrove forest on Earth. It's called the Sundarbans. And it is the only place on the planet where the apex predator actively, deliberately hunts human beings. Bengal tigers, almost everywhere in India, avoid people. They're territorial, they're powerful, but they've largely learned to see humans as a threat rather than prey. Not in the Sundarbans. In the Sundarbans, it's the opposite. Researchers believe constant flooding by salt water has made these tigers more aggressive, more territorial, and far more willing to see a person as food. Every year, dozens of people go missing in this forest. Honey collectors, fishermen, woodcutters, people who enter the mangroves for their livelihood and simply don't come back. These tigers are powerful swimmers. They move completely silently through the water. And crucially, they attack from behind. Which is why locals have been wearing masks on the backs of their heads for generations. Literal face masks painted with eyes worn on the back of the skull. The idea is that if the tiger thinks it's been spotted, if it sees what looks like eyes staring back at it might not attack. It works. Sometimes. But the tigers are only part of the problem. Saltwater crocodiles patrol the waterways. King cobras nest in the undergrowth. The water carries diseases that most regional hospitals aren't equipped to treat. And during cyclone season, storm surges sweep through with almost no warning, flooding everything. The Sundarbans isn't a place where danger is possible. It's a place where danger is the default setting. Every hour you spend inside it is an hour you spend hoping that nothing in it has noticed you're there. Number 6. Danakil Depression, Ethiopia. Scientists, actual scientists, call this the coolest place on Earth. And then they describe it and you realize they don't mean cool as in comfortable. They mean cool as in absolutely mind-bending. The Danakil Depression sits at the junction of three tectonic plates that are slowly pulling the African continent apart. The land is literally sinking. The Earth is splitting open. What remains at the surface is a landscape that looks like nothing else on this planet: neon green acid pools, blinding white salt flats, and sulfur vents that belch poisonous steam without any warning. The temperature regularly exceeds 120 degrees Fahrenheit. There's almost no rain, almost no vegetation, and the lakes here are made of sulfuric acid so corrosive they'll dissolve leather within minutes of contact. There are places in the Danakil where the ground smells so strongly of hydrogen sulfide, the gas that smells like rotten eggs and also kills you, that you start to feel it before you even notice the smell. And yet the Afar people have lived here for centuries. They mine salt by hand from the desert floor in temperatures that would hospitalize most humans within hours. They load the blocks onto camels and transport them the same way their ancestors did hundreds of years ago. For them, the Danakil is not a curiosity. It is survival. But even the Afar will tell you there are places in the depression where no one goes. Pools that dissolve anything organic in minutes. Vents that release enough hydrogen sulfide to kill a person before they realize what they're breathing. NASA has studied the Danakil extensively because its conditions are the closest match on Earth to the surface of Mars. Microbial life exists here. Organisms thriving in acid pools, in boiling temperatures, in toxic gas. If life can survive in this place, the argument goes, it could survive almost anywhere in the solar system. Archaeological teams have tried to explore the deeper regions of the depression. Most turned back. Suffocating fumes. Disorientation. Heat-induced hallucinations. The Afar have a legend that the Danakil is where a fire god was sealed away, and that if humans dig too deep, his wrath returns. Science or legend? The message is the same either way: this place does not want you here. Number 5. McMurdo Dry Valleys, Antarctica. Here's something almost nobody knows. Antarctica, that giant sheet of ice at the bottom of the world, has a place inside it where there is no ice, no snow, no precipitation of any kind, and where nothing lives. The McMurdo Dry Valleys stretch across roughly 1,500 square miles in one of the coldest regions of Antarctica. And despite being in Antarctica, they're completely dry. Winds reaching 186 miles per hour tear through the valleys constantly, so strong and so cold that they strip away any moisture before it can settle. The result is a landscape that looks like the surface of another planet. Brown rock, barren soil, complete total silence. No plants, no animals, no insects. Not even bacteria in most of the soil samples scientists have tested from this area. Average temperature is -22 degrees Fahrenheit. And there has been no measurable rainfall here in over 2 million years. 2 million years. For context, 2 million years ago, early humans were just starting to figure out how to make basic stone tools. Every civilization, every war, every empire, every invention, every language, every story ever written, all of it happened while the dry valley sat completely unchanged. So, silent, empty. NASA has used this location to simulate Martian conditions for rover testing and astronaut preparation. It's the closest thing to another planet you can experience without actually leaving Earth. Without specialized equipment, a human being could survive here for a few hours at most. The cold would take your extremities first. Then the wind would strip away your body heat. And the silence, the absolute, total silence of a place where nothing has made a sound in geological time, would start to take your mind. We're halfway through. And I promise you the places coming up are stranger than anything we've covered so far. Hit subscribe if you want to see more of this. We've got a lot more where this came from. Number 4. Grand Prismatic Spring, Yellowstone. From above, it looks like someone dropped a painting into the Wyoming wilderness. A perfect circle of electric blue at the center, surrounded by rings of green, yellow, orange, and deep red radiating outward. Steam rises from the surface and catches the light, making it shimmer like something that belongs in a different world. It is, genuinely, one of the most beautiful natural formations on Earth. And it kills. The water at the center of the Grand Prismatic Spring reaches 188 degrees Fahrenheit. That's hot enough to dissolve human tissue. And those vivid, stunning colors? They're not minerals, they're bacteria. Billions of heat-loving organisms called thermophiles, each species colonizing a slightly different temperature zone, each one producing a different pigment. The result is a living rainbow. A beautiful, boiling, bacterial, lethal living rainbow. Since the 1800s, more than 20 people have died in Yellowstone's thermal features. Some slipped. Some ignored the warning signs. Some stepped off the boardwalk to get a better photo. In 2016, a man fell into one of the park's hot springs. By the time recovery teams arrived the following day, there was nothing left to recover. The acidic, superheated water had dissolved his body completely. Within hours, 560 gallons surge into the spring every minute, up through a crack in the Earth's crust. The steam smells of sulfur. The ground around the edges is thin, fragile crust sitting on top of boiling reservoirs. One wrong step doesn't mean a burn. It means disappearing. The Grand Prismatic Spring is the most photographed feature in Yellowstone. It is a reminder that the most beautiful things on this planet are not always the safest things to stand next to. Sometimes they're the most dangerous things you'll ever see. Number 3, Nyiragongo Volcano, Democratic Republic of Congo. Most volcanoes warn you before they erupt. Tremors, gas emissions, changes in the shape of the mountain. Little signals that give scientists time to issue warnings, get people out, prepare. It's not perfect, but it's something. Nyiragongo gives almost none of that. This volcano sits in eastern Congo, near the border with Rwanda. And inside its crater, something exists that fewer than a handful of volcanoes on Earth possess. A permanent lava lake. A churning, bubbling pool of molten rock that has been active for decades. It glows orange at night and is visible from miles away, a fire at the top of a mountain that never goes out. In January 2002, Nyiragongo erupted without its usual signs. Fissures opened on the flanks of the mountain and lava poured downhill toward the city of Goma. Most lava flows move slowly enough that people can walk away from them. This lava moved at speeds reaching 37 miles per hour. People couldn't run fast enough. The lava reached Goma city center. It swallowed homes, schools, roads. Nearly 400,000 people were forced to evacuate. Over 100 people died. Entire neighborhoods were buried before residents could even gather their belongings. Today, over 1 million people still live within the potential eruption zone. The cracks in the ground around Goma continue to widen. Seismic activity remains elevated. Volcanologists who monitor Nyiragongo have said this repeatedly and publicly. It is not a question of whether the volcano will erupt again. It is only a question of when. And when it does, the lava will flow downhill. Toward Goma. Again. Number 2, Gates of Hell, Turkmenistan. 50 years ago, this was just a flat, unremarkable patch of desert near a small village called Darvaza. Sand in every direction. Nothing to see, nothing to mark on a map. Today there is a crater 230 feet across and 66 feet deep that has been on fire continuously for more than half a century. Here is what happened. In 1971, Soviet geologists arrived in the area. They believed the ground underneath contained an oil deposit, and they set up a drilling rig. What they hit instead was a massive pocket of natural gas, and the ground around it was far less stable than anyone had calculated. The surface collapsed. The drilling rig disappeared into the earth. By several accounts, some of the geologists went with it. Methane began pouring out of the newly formed crater. The team was worried the gas would spread and poison nearby communities. Someone made a decision, set it on fire. Burn off the gas. Their estimate was a few weeks, maybe a month, and it would all be gone. That was 1971. The fire has not stopped. Hundreds of individual flames burn inside the crater at any given time. The mud at the bottom boils. The heat is intense enough to feel from 100 feet away. At night, the glow is visible for miles across the flat desert. A permanent orange light burning in the dark, in a place where nothing should be burning, in a crater that was never supposed to exist. Multiple attempts have been made to extinguish it. All of them have failed. The crater sits above one of the largest natural gas reserves on the planet, which means it has essentially unlimited fuel and no intention of going out. Scientists have found bacteria living in the center of the crater, thriving in conditions that should be completely lethal to any living thing. And the most absurd part of all of this? It's a tourist attraction now. Thousands of people travel to the middle of a desert to stand at the edge of a hole that's been on fire since before most of them were born. Created by a mistake that someone thought would fix itself in a couple of weeks. It hasn't fixed itself. It won't. And honestly, at this point, the gates of hell are just part of the landscape. Number 1. Muval Cave, Romania. And now we get to the one that even the scientists who study it have trouble believing is real. In 1986, construction workers testing the ground near the city of Mangalia in southeastern Romania accidentally broke through the roof of something that had been sealed from the rest of the world for approximately 5.5 million years. 5.5 million years. When this cave was last opened to the surface, humans did not exist. Our earliest ancestors were still millions of years away from walking upright. Whatever was inside that cave had been evolving, changing, living, dying, in complete and total isolation, for longer than our entire species has been on this planet. The air inside contains dangerously high levels of hydrogen sulfide and carbon dioxide. Oxygen levels sit at roughly half of what exists in normal air. Breathing inside without specialized equipment would not just be dangerous. It would be fatal within minutes. To access the main chambers, you have to descend through a narrow shaft that drops 65 feet straight down into total darkness. No natural light has entered this cave in geological time. No rain, no wind, no bacteria or microbes from the outside world have touched it. What scientists found inside broke something. In total isolation from sunlight, Movil Cave had developed a completely independent ecosystem, not powered by photosynthesis like virtually all life on Earth, but by chemosynthesis. Microorganisms at the base of the food chain extract energy from chemical reactions involving hydrogen sulfide and methane. These microbes feed an entire community of animals. 48 species to be exact, found nowhere else on the planet. Blind water scorpions, translucent leeches, spiders that have never seen light, insects with abnormally elongated antennae that evolved over millions of years purely to navigate in absolute darkness. Every single one of these creatures evolved inside that cave while, 65 feet above their heads, entire human civilizations rose and collapsed and were forgotten. They have no concept of sunlight, no concept of seasons, no concept of weather or oceans or other animals or the world above them. They just evolved. Quietly. In the dark. For 5.5 million years. Fewer than 100 people have ever been allowed inside. Each visit requires special permission from Romania's Cave Research Authority. Full contamination prevention equipment is mandatory, not for the safety of the visitor but for the safety of the cave. One introduced bacterium from the surface world could collapse an ecosystem that took millions of years to develop. NASA has studied Movil Cave extensively. The conditions inside, the darkness, the chemical energy source, the total isolation, are the closest analog on Earth to what scientists believe might exist beneath the ice of Jupiter's moon Europa or Saturn's moon Enceladus. If life can thrive in a sealed, lightless, toxic chamber for 5 million years, then life existing elsewhere in our solar system moves from speculation to something closer to probability. The people living in Mangalia, just a few miles from the cave entrance, had no idea for decades that beneath their feet was an entirely separate world, running on completely different rules, populated by creatures that evolution designed for conditions that look nothing like ours. Most of them still find it hard to believe. Those are the 10 places on Earth so dangerous they probably shouldn't exist. From a lake that turns animals into stone statues, to a crater that's been on fire since before you were born, to a village where breathing outside can freeze your lungs, to a cave that spent 5 million years building an entire world that has never seen the sun. Every single one of these places is real. Every one of them exists right now. On the same planet where you're sitting watching this video. Which one shocked you the most? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if you made it to the end, you already know this channel is for you. Hit subscribe. Turn on notifications. Because the next one goes somewhere even more impossible than anything you just saw. We'll see you there.